Coming up, you've heard Boom and Gloom, love that name, talk about the decision to hire David Adelman and Josh Kroenke's press conference. I'll give you my thoughts coming up on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Being with us Monday through Friday, being an everydayer, hanging out with us. Whether you're at Spotify, where you can give us a 5-star review. We have a lot of very good reviews on there. I would like to get a little higher, but we have lots of really great reviews over there. If you can shout me one there, or on Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching us at youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Glad to have you guys part of our community. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. My name is Matt Moore. I write a Substack called The Denver Dig, credentialed reporter for the Denver Nuggets for 13 seasons. I work for the Action Network as their senior NBA writer, and I'm on Locked On NBA Daily. Just me tonight. Boom and Gloom, the new show for Ryan and Swipa. I have to make stickers. Got their words in this afternoon about David Adelman's press conference, so I thought I would go ahead and jump on here and do a show, give you my thoughts on this. Podcast version will be up in the morning, so if you're listening on podcast, do go back and listen to Boom and Gloom and listen to their thoughts and their reactions. And Swipa had very passionate thoughts about being tired of excuses, and it's important, I think, as a Nuggets fan to hear that, because like your voice is like, I don't really care how you do it, you just got to do this, is worth hearing. I think it's fair for fans to have urgency and passion and a demand for the Nuggets to improve the roster, because that needs to be heard. Because Ryan and I are going to spend a lot of time on like the realism of it. Like Ryan and I are realists, and we're going to deal with the reality of like what you can and can't do. But on today's show, I'll give you kind of my thoughts on the David Adelman hire and why I think it was a really, 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 really bad move. This is clickbait. It's not because of David Adelman. He's great. But I do think it was a very bad move. We'll talk about internal development comments from Kroenke and kind of where I see the Nuggets at as they head into this offseason. All that more on today's show. Okay. I'll start right here. I wrote this several times at the Dig. I cautioned constantly, you have to hire a new GM before you make a decision on coach. You cannot do this. So I've been here a while, and I've seen this. Kroenke hired Brian Shaw before he hired Michael Malone. Or, I'm sorry. He hired Brian Shaw before he hired Tim Connelly. Not good. Not great. Now, Tim got along with Brian fine. It was fine. There wasn't like huge tension there. It wasn't a big disconnect. But if you look around the league, this always, always, always happens. Because if the guy is not your guy, then you're not on the same page with him. You don't value the same things because you would have hired the person that you value. Maybe they hire somebody who's in perfect lockstep with David Adelman. Maybe that person is Ben Tenzer. Maybe that person is Tommy Balchetis. Maybe that person is somebody else inside the organization. Lots of options here that this is okay. But I will tell you, you cannot go from a situation where literally the problem that you have ascribed as the biggest issue with your season, not the lack of a bench, not the absence of a backup center, not the 23rd ranked defense, not a season where everyone was miserable, not the injury inconsistency, none of that. But instead, the biggest problem was the disconnect between your front office and the head coach, and then literally hire a coach before you've chosen the front office. You can't do that. You just didn't. You just cannot do that. That is, I think, a huge problem. They're setting themselves up here where if they hire Tenzer, I don't have an issue with it. Ben Tenzer been around the organization for a long time, has managed the cap, is very smart, is well respected, has done a great job with the gold. Talked to him for an interview about PJ Hall earlier this year, actually. They think Ben would do a great job. And they know each other enough to where maybe that's like in line, and this new blood can be a good enough bridge, right? Ryan mentioned it. There was a lot of speculation. A lot of people thought that Tenzer was going to be announced as the new GM. That might just come as early as tomorrow. Who knows? Okay. I will tell you that I will be skeptical until I know that Stan Kroenke hasn't hired somebody else. I will say that David Adelman, in my opinion, was a Josh Kroenke hire and not a Stan Kroenke hire. I don't think it was hard to convince Stan because it would be cheaper. But I do think that this was a Josh Kroenke hire because this is the kind of move that Josh would make. A younger guy, internal development, worked his way up, shown a lot of things. Locker room believes in him. Basketball, like family, makes a lot of sense. Like this is absolutely a Josh, and that's a good thing that this is a Josh hire and not a Stan Kroenke hire. That's a very good thing. But on the other hand, I would also just say, if they had just been like, yeah, Tenzer's GM, Adelman's the coach, we believe in this, like, we don't think that this was broken. We think these two guys got out of hand, and the core of this organization is still good. Okay, we can disagree, we can agree, we can disagree. I don't think it was that bad, so I could definitely be convinced to be on board with that. What I'm not going to be on board with is if they bring in a new GM, if they keep Tenzer and then add somebody above him and then bring over a consultant. When you start doing this, there's like multiple. I think having a lot of people in a room that disagree is a great approach to building any sort of organization, and including basketball. There's a lot of examples of that. But I also think that can cause factions. And there's a lot of organizations that are completely toxic because of factions, and this was one of them this year. Is that this went from being a top-down, everybody aligned organization into a very clicked, absolutely divisive kind of thing. So my thought is that I don't agree with this move because of the timing of it and because of the sequence of hiring a coach before you hire your general manager. Go through the process, evaluate what your organization is going to be, set your tone at the top. You're saying we have failed the Nikola Jokic championship window. Like, I'll get to the comments about internal development. There's all these comments today that are like bouncing back and forth. Oh no, Jokic's message was read loud and clear. So how are you going to improve? We're going to keep the same guys. What? We'll talk about that coming up on Locked On Nuggets. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I gave out on buckets. We've hit 3 parlays in a row on a pregame show over on buckets, and they're all at FanDuel. And we gave out Rudy Gobert 8+ boards, Anthony Edwards 8+ boards, and Thunder money line, and it got home. It was great. It's been a really good run. You can do lots of different combinations. Another one I would tell you, Anthony Edwards over 6.5 rebounds at FanDuel is the best price right now. You should get that if you are into such things. If you decide that you like to having a little bit of action on something, Anthony Edwards over on rebounds pretty much every game is a slam, as is Jalen Williams over on assists. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us here on a Friday. I will go back and say this because I evaluated this entirely from a Kroenke decision. I do think the hiring of David Adelman is good. I do think that Adelman is likely to invigorate the offense and defense. I think Swipa was insane about I will tell you, I think the zone stuff was completely overrated in the Thunder series. Just me personally. I just think that was a whole lot of overestimation of what that actually did. But I think Adelman did do a lot of really smart adjustments especially in the Clipper series. I thought he was a master. I thought he was masterful in that series. The players trust him. The players believe in him. That's a big deal. He hasn't given them any reason to doubt him. He's been successful when he's taken over. He was successful to end the season and in the playoffs. And one of the things that I always asked with Malone was, I said, who are you going to get? Who's going to be better? Who do you know is going to be better? And I think, honestly, a good question with David Adelman was like, who are you going to get that you knew was going to be better? You were going to have to take a chance on an unproven assistant, or you were going to have to overpay for a coach like Jeff Van Gundy, who hasn't been a head coach in this league in 2 decades. And that's a real problem. Like that would be a very big concern. You can hire somebody like Mike Budenholzer, but Mike is very rigid in his ways. You can hire a coach like Frank Vogel. I think Frank's an amazing head coach. I have like the highest of respect for how Frank Vogel has conducted himself and his coaching philosophies. Offense has never been good, period. And dot. Never been good. Never been good. I'll be very interested to see what Adelman does with reshaping his staff. That's another question I think that has as well. All right. I got a lot of the comments I'll respond to in the last segment. We got some interesting comments I want to get to here tonight. As far as Kroenke's comments, I did not understand. Oh, and I want to say this. This is a public thing. I should have been at the press conference today for both you as listeners, you as the audience, you as our community, and for the Nuggets to be present at that. I have live show commitments for the NBA playoffs that I can't break on within a day's notice. And I totally understand why these press conferences are always given on short notice. I just couldn't be there. It's not like they missed me, but I felt like I should have been there and I wasn't. And I just couldn't get out of various shows I was doing for various jobs that I do. So bummed that I was not able to be at Josh's press conference today. He always is really impressive when he talks. He always carries himself in a really great way. The message is always good. The idea of internal development, would that be in the reality of the tax situation, of the cap situation? There's a world in which this works. I will lay it out for you because I'm told I am always too negative. So I will lay this out for you. Julian has moment in game 6, right? Julian actually was tracking pretty well. Julian's is never going to be a good defender, but he will probably get to be passable. And Julian has an extremely good floor game. Julian has a really good shooting motion, and Julian has a real confidence in his offensive flow. Julian's going to be a good offensive player in this league, and he will probably wind up as a C- defender. It's fine. So that's Julian. Julian can make a big leap this year, and that can help. Peyton Watson, if he goes into this offseason and he absolutely attacks it like a rabid dog and he comes out of it not complacent, but instead like, I am earning more minutes next season. I am going to play 25 minutes per game next season. If he takes that approach, Peyton Watson has the talent to get there. He could be a 3-level scorer. He's a defensive monster. All the offensive stuff to me is about repetition, opportunities, and skill development. Everything's on the table for Peyton. He can do that. He can get there. Jalen Pickett had some moments, can definitely wind up as like a pretty good point guard, like max out at like a starter for a couple of years for a team in the league, whether it's this one or not. I think that's definitely on the table. I would not have any problems with Jalen Pickett being a backup point guard in this league. Hunter Tyson is a different question. Maybe he can make a leap. Who knows? Like, I don't want to count Hunter out. He's a professional basketball player. Trey Alexander didn't really get a chance this year. So I kind of wonder if maybe there's an opportunity there. I don't know if they're going to bring back any more of the two-way guys. I would like to see a lot more integration with the Gold next season from both a coaching perspective and organizational perspective. They need to be sending guys up and down and back and up and really getting them opportunities to contribute. They need to develop. If you're going to develop talent, you have a team in what's called the developmental league. It's actually called the G League because of Gatorade spending a lot of money, but it used to be called the D League for development league. Go develop those players. But at the same time to say, oh, I heard what Nikola Jokic said. And then be like, yeah, we're going to just do internal. What if those guys don't make leaps, man? What if they're just not very good? What if Peyton Watson doesn't put it together? What if Peyton Watson can't put it together on a team with Nikola Jokic because that's not his style? What if this doesn't really get there? What if Jalen Pickett suffers an injury? What if Deron Holmes doesn't come back healthy from his injury? you got to give yourself some outs here. You got 15 roster spots, and if you want to bring back the core 5, because it is a core 5 now, okay. But those other 10, you got to have flexibility to where 4 of them work out. You got to have a 9-man rotation going into the playoffs, and then you can start slicing guys off by the time that you get to the conference finals. But you cannot go into the season just assuming the development. That was the mistake that Booth made. And that, to me, I think, is where this issue comes from. Joker's going to want to play with the best in the world. Joker's going to want to play with great players. Joker's going to want to play with a team that is good enough for him to compete with. He's going to want guys that can shoot, that can dribble, that understand the game, that can defend, that are not going to make mistakes, and that you can count on. He's going to want his guys, Aaron and Jamal and Mike, to be able to get a rest. And I just don't know if you can do this. Now, I also don't know what the trade market is. Here's a big thing is just like, and Ryan, I've talked about this pretty consistently, is when we've talked about the trades, Swipa seems to be of the opinion that what Swipa wants is he wants the Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey trade. That's what he wants, is like a steal where everybody's like, how could you, like, I got text messages from 3 different executives that night being like, not saying this, my words, I hate Sam Presti. How did he do this? Right? He wants that kind of a deal because every franchise, I think, wants that deal. Those are just very rare. And you have to have something like a Josh Giddey. And I don't think that Peyton Watson even is a Josh Giddey level asset. Like, look at where Josh Giddey was selected. Right? So I don't know what this entails, but I do think that going in and being like, they could also say this though. Like Josh can have given everyone the impression and said, I'm saying Josh because if I say Kroenke, it's confusing. Jay Kroenke can say, we're doing internal development, and then free agency opens up and a guy does want to come and a guy does want to show up. Bruce has already made it clear. That would be a great signing. If they can work out the money, that's a great signing. Tax player, MLE, I got no problem with that for Bruce Brown. But they are very limited in what they can do. And I understand that. And that may be their reality. But also, if you're going to do that, then you should not be like, oh, I understand what Joker's. You'd be like, yeah, we're in a bad spot and we're going to work tirelessly to try and build out of it. We're going to work the phones constantly. We're going to do everything that we can to try and fix this. And that, to me, is what I think we kind of wind up with here. Coming up, I'm going to get to your comments. We'll wrap up our conversation on the front office and all that's going on here on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us. Ken Goldman says, DA is not Brian Shaw, but Matt's opinions are Shawful. Thanks. Appreciate that. Maruski says, I say go after Denny from the Blazers. Denny is considered to be the best player on the Blazers. You would have to give up picks that you do not own alongside a player like Peyton Watson and or Aaron Gordon to get Denny. So that's not going to happen. Hurricane says LeBron opts out and signs here for a minimum. Not a bad plan. Don't mind that at all. Robert Rodarte says Brown is our closest Giddey. And he says, I'll take Brown over Caruso. Man, Brown really, I like Christian a lot, and he's a really good player. I do think that the estimation of him is getting a little out of hand. Back at the beginning of the show, Jason said this. Why do you do Locked On Nuggets? You hate him on him more than anybody. If you did Locked On Avs, it'd make more sense. But underachieved choke versus team missing 2 All-Stars. But Nuggets overachieve, but you always rip them when I watch. The reason I do Locked On Nuggets is because I'm a member of this community. I've been in Colorado for 13 seasons. I'm not a lifer, but I've been here for 13 years. My kids have been raised here. My daughter was born here in Colorado. This is the team I have covered. I have covered this team. This is the only team I have ever covered. I have never covered another team except this franchise. I know the parking lot attendants and the security guards. I've known the front offices. I've talked to the coaches. I've had coaches call to check on me when family members were in the hospital. I have relationships with the media. I have relationships on the business side. I know that team and I cover that team and I try and cover that team honestly. And I understand the importance of having guys on this show that love the team. And I've tried to provide that with my guidance of the show. That's why Ryan's on here. That's why Swipe is on here. Those guys love the Denver Nuggets. And I try and provide you with my analysis and perspective as a professional. And I understand that there's times when you want better from a fan perspective. And I promise over the next year, I will endeavor to try and provide you with more of that content when you need it. I will do what I can to provide that. I do the best I can. Koei Kokoro says, wish we got Taylor Jenkins for his defensive schemes so the Nuggets lack desperately, but Adelman isn't the worst candidate. So I will tell you, I'll be very curious again to see what happens with the assistant coaching staff. If Ryan Saunders returns and likely everything kind of stays the same, I would be very interested in seeing if they can bring in somebody new to kind of take over the defense and give it a facelift, so to speak. And I think Adelman's going to have his own ideas that are going to be different. So, I mean, the playoffs kind of illustrated that to a certain degree. So I would expect some changes on the defensive side next year, regardless. Alexander Pavicevic says, I mean, the Kroenkes don't believe in spending unnecessary money on coaches and GMs. That's true. But I will tell you this. Josh is different than Stan. That's just my opinion, is that Josh, the way that the things that Josh Kroenke talks about and the way that he approaches things and the things I've heard about what Josh has wanted behind the scenes have indicated to me that Josh Kroenke is not that way. I think that spending is always going to be a touchy subject with ownership. But I also think that Josh Kroenke is more interested in the idea of growth than other members of the ownership group, so to speak. Tim Maridu says, DA is an excellent hire. The Nuggets made a good decision to give him extra run. And a new GM can always fire DA if need be. Why couldn't DA be involved in the hiring process for this new GM? Those are two different jobs. That is David Adelman. Nope. No. That is not, I think, the move there. Alex Smith says you need an owner who knows the sport and how it operates from within. So Josh Kroenke played basketball in high school. He played basketball on a scholarship at Missouri. Now there's certain connections to that university that make that situation obviously a little bit different. But Josh loves basketball. He loves basketball. You don't need to, Josh understands basketball. Josh is not foreign to basketball. I would say that he understands basketball better than any of the other sports. That would be my estimation. Robert Darte says, I mean, the hope is Strother and Watson taking a leave, MPJ not getting injured, and Jamal finally showing up in shape. Yeah, I mean, that would be a great start. I will say I thought Jamal ended the season really well. I think overall, Jamal's game was in a good place. Even if he didn't have individually good games, it wasn't like last season. You're in a way better place than that. Rodarte also says Pickett being a Monte Morris type would be huge. Accurate. On everybody's soul, P. Watt will learn how to make layups. I think so. I think he'll get there, or just dunk more. Ariel Altair says the issue is Jokic is in the height of his prime. It's a gamble for young guys. I agree. You need to get some veterans. They're going to have to find a way to get some veterans. I don't know how they're going to do it, but you're going to have to find some guys that can play. And look, they took the gamble on a few like Saric and just didn't work. It's probably time to move on from DJ just to clear up the roster spot and go a different direction. So that's the perspective there. 7 Iguanas. That's a great name. What is your theory with trades? Sometimes they're one-sided. Other times they are risk. It's true. I think that there's certain trades that the Nuggets can probably pull off. I just kind of wonder. Here's the thing. It only takes one team, right? It takes one team being like, screw it. We need a shooter. MPJ's available. Let's make the call. And I don't know that they want to get rid of him. I really don't. There's a report out. I will say, I am skeptical of the report that came out that the Nuggets are, quote, cautious about. And I would disregard that, just me personally, based on a lot of factors. So been doing this a while. I did aggregation at CBS for 10 years. Alex Smith says, how do you honestly feel about the DA hire? I honestly feel that David Adelman has been a great coach, that he is somebody that I look forward to bantering with in press conferences, that every single player in the locker room. Look, the guys, everyone knows that I was a Malone guy. I wasn't as much of a Malone guy as other reporters because like Malone's not texting me to give me stuff. But I will say that the players were never like effusive about Michael over the last like 3 years. And we didn't ask as much because it was kind of a given. First couple of years, everyone was just like, he's been so great. He's like built such a personal relationship. I do think they kind of outgrew him, and I think Adelman's more of who they are now. I think that relationship is a little bit better for what they need to be. Robert Rodarte nails it. Matt doesn't hate our team. He hates every team. Memphis even got him to hate them. A little bit. Shoshing agrees with me. Very big mistake. It should be the GM hire first than the coach. Also, the players are too comfortable with DA. Can he tell Jamal to come to work fit to play and PJ to play defense? I think so. I think he can actually do that because of the whole, he got them to really kind of spark a fire under him and be like, look, and he was benching guys, like being able to pull this, be like, nope, you're in, you're playing well, you're in, nope, playing badly, you're out. That's a very big deal. I think that's actually a significant thing. Vincent DeGilio says, Matt, what takeaways should Nuggets fans have if OKC sweeps the Wolves or win in 5? Okay. All right. As a Nuggets fan, you should feel good because you took the number one team that had the best point differential in NBA history to 7 games. That's an accomplishment. I think every series is different. I think every series is matchups. I think every series is wildly different. I think that series is not over, that it's going back to Minnesota. Sure, it looks like the Thunder are going to sweep. The Wolves, I think, had a better season overall than the Nuggets did. They weren't as miserable as Nuggets. Like, Wolves fans were not as miserable as Nuggets fans were this year. They didn't fire their coach and GM. And in the end, you made the second round and you lost in game 7, just like last year. Game 1 was a very weird game. I still do not know how the Nuggets won that game. I do not know how they won it. I understand how the Pacers won game 1 of the Knicks series more than I understand how the Nuggets won game 1. And like, I get it. It's like, the Nuggets were good. I argued for much of the year. Like, I argued with Ryan. I was like, they won 50 games. They're good. So if you listen to me on any given day, you're going to get an attempt to move the conversation from an extreme to a balance. And right now, everyone's like, oh, man, the Nuggets were so great. This Wolves team is trash. And I'm just like, guys, like, the Nuggets got wiped out in games 2 and game 7. They lost by like 40 in game 7. They lost by like 30 in game 2. This happens. OKC's really good. I think we're overreacting, I think, a little bit on some of this, where it's like, look, the Wolves and the Nuggets, it may be a situation where this is honestly the deal, is that OKC is so far ahead of everybody else that, yeah, even if you get close, you were lucky, and they were always so much better than everybody else. That's what it feels like to me. Supernova says, now that I'm subscribed to Locked On Nuggets, my wife loves me and my kids want to be around me. Thanks, Matt. You're welcome. You're welcome, Supernova. Take the kids to get ice cream. Like Dairy Delight. What if OKC goes 12-3? Yeah. If you take the only 3 games from the champ, that's a pretty good takeaway. I do think that the Thunder were caught off guard by how tough the Nuggets were, and that series sharpened, like, steel sharpens steel. I think that sharpened the OKC Thunder for the series versus the Wolves, who unfortunately came in against the Lakers and especially that Warriors team, who was bad. Big Honey says, get Bruce Brown back. 100%. Like, look, they should be able to make that work. They just should be able to. Like, it should be able to make that work. That is a thing that will help them. There's a lot of ways to do this. Seems like it makes sense. Programming. We'll do a show Friday. I don't know if it'll be me and Swipe and Gripe, or all 3 of us. We'll see. But we'll have another show on Friday. So be on the lookout for that. Have yourselves a great weekend if I don't talk to you. And I appreciate you guys being with us. Let us know your thoughts on the David Adelman hire and what you think the Nuggets should do in the offseason. And we'll talk to you guys again next time here on Locked On Nuggets.